Hey there, everybody. Hope you're doing good tonight. Glad you're here for Uncle's Throwback Thursdays on a Thursday. And you probably wondering why I've got all this bling on here tonight. And it's because next week my guest is going to be none other than the world famous WWF, WWE wrestling man himself, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. He probably this guy. He's wrestled against everybody from the Hulk Hogan, uh, Ric Flair. He's wrestled all of them, and he's won a lot of championship belts. And he's got hurt a whole bunch, but that's next week. So this is this week, and this week is Mayberry night. We've only got one Mayberry guy, but that's all we need. We have Rodney Dillard on tonight. Now, a lot of you folks that watch the Andy Griffith Show probably saw him, or I know you did. If you were a fan of the band the Dillards, or the Darlings, they called themselves on there. Darlings would come into town and they were crazy, bunch of crazy guys, but they were all good musicians. And the guy that played guitar and had the straight face, always had his mouth wide open and just kind of looking around like he didn't know what was going on, but he's a very smart guy, very brilliant. Rodney Dillard. And I'm going to give you a little history on those guys because I'm going to have to tell you what's been going on. I've been on the phone since maybe 8 o'clock this morning trying to change phone services. And as of 30 minutes ago, I've got nowhere with it. I changed out SIM cards. I did all that stuff, and there's a glitch. So I'm going to have to do something a little different tonight. I'm going to have to call Rodney on Facebook Messenger. So it'll still be good. We'll still be able to talk to him. This is all new to him, too. So anyway, I ain't going to complain too much about my phone stuff because it's going to be a good night here. I just hope we can pull it off. I'm flying by the seat of my pants tonight on trying a Facebook Messenger call to him. So we'll find out what happens. I want to tell you a little bit about Rodney. I don't know if he's tuned in right now or not, but he will be tuning in here when I call him at 8:15 Eastern Standard. I'm really privileged to have him on tonight because Rodney's been in the hospital and he just got out. And I wasn't sure if he was going to be able to do it tonight, but that guy is a trooper. I mean, you saw him on Mayberry climb out the windows when they was playing music, and the hotel manager come in. So if he can do that, he's a tough bird. So Rodney is been in the hospital. He's been sick, and but he still wanted to do this. So I'm really honored he's going to be on tonight. Rodney, as I mentioned, he was part of the Dillards on the Andy Griffith Show, and we're going to talk to him about that. And I'm going to find out and let you guys know just a few things about him. I mean, me and Rodney's been buddies a while, so I know a lot about him, and I know a lot of good stories about him. I had him at Bean Blossom Music Park here a couple of years back, and I had one whole set from him about an hour that all he did was told stories from Mayberry, and there's some funny stuff you just didn't see on the show. Those guys were crazy. They're funny, and probably more funny stories than you can imagine that he's gonna tell. But Rodney in the band the Dillards, they were big rock stars. They a lot of people just remember them as the Darlings, but the Dillards, they toured, did some touring with Elton John, and they were on the really big shows. They did a lot of stuff. There's a funny story I'm gonna see if he'll tell about. I'm on to think it's either Mick Jagger or Keith Richards from the Rolling Stones. It's a funny story, and he's told me that, and it's just funny, but I can't remember which one it was. But Rodney and those guys, they were major stars during their time, and Rodney right now. Now Rodney, he lives in Missouri, and he comes through town every now and then. I know a buddy of mine, Sammy Sawyer, that may be online tonight. You guys that have seen Barney on some of the TV shows, especially local, you've seen Barney on Channel 10 and some of that. That's my buddy Sammy Sawyer, and Sammy had Rodney and the lady that played. Mine's not good. It's been wore out today, but Charlene played Charlene. He had them both into town during the fair here, so it was a good thing. They got to make a good hookup, and I'll tell you what, he's a great Barney. I know that. But anyway, we'll talk about some things like that, and Rodney's still out there playing. He plays a lot with his wife Beverly, she plays different kinds of instruments, and they're a real good duet. They did a show called Song of the Mountains not too long back, and I think it's already aired, but it'll air again. Tim White does a great job putting those on. And before Rodney calls in, I'm going to say hello to a few people here. Danny Bivens, glad to have you. Hey, TJ Nugent, glad to have you. Lonnie Lassiter, buddy, I love you. You know that. And I want you to know me and you are always good. Always good buddies, me and you are. You've been there more than just the owner of a record label, but you've been there as a great friend. So let me roll myself back down where I can see. Buddy Barney Rogers wrote a song, Ready and Waiting, off the new Pine Castle release of the All Stars of Bluegrass. So you could still order that through Pine Castle, or you can order that CD through me. And I know Barney would appreciate it. That's a great song. Jamie Bowling, glad to have you on. Don Coochie, good volume today. Good, glad to have it. It's going to be even better next week because I'm moving on up. I'm getting me I've got me already ordered a really good lapel mic, so it'll be good. And Joe Campbell said audio died. Really? Should still be on. Didn't change that much, surely. But Lonnie also says love Rodney Dillard, and Rodney loves you too. I know that. And Debbie Cantwell, it's good to have you on. It was good to talk to you last week, and I just want you to know you've always been a good friend, and I appreciate you checking in on this. My buddy Rick Caldwell, now he's a good buddy of mine, and he used to work for the police department or the county, something like that. I know he was a deputy or something there for a while. Not sure. He may have been an admiral. I can't remember, but Rick's one of my good buddies, and thanks, Rick. Kim Caskey, glad to have you. Nikki Booth, glad to have you. Doug Klein, my longtime friend. That is true. The great drummer. Used to play with a band called the Knoxville Grass. And Doug's wife, who passed away a few years back, which I'm very sorry about that, was a Olympic swimmer. And that's a big deal right there. I mean, a lot of people get out there and paddle around in the water, but to be an Olympic swimmer, that's a pretty big deal. She was that. Swim at the University of Tennessee. So glad to have Doug on. And Doug has some good stories too. You know, Doug used to live in New York, and he lived next to, I'm wanting to think it was Rod Serling. He can tell me here in a few minutes. I know also he was on the same road as the guy that either wrote or did articles for Mad Magazine. So he's got a good history there. My old buddy Doug Klein. Randy Green, glad to have you on. Joe Campbell, got it back. Good. I think I just dropped my head. You're welcome, TJ. Jeff Whitaker, glad to have you. Travis Brown, sounds great, man. John Husky, hey Phil, been looking forward to hearing this show. It's going to be a good one, I know that. And Terry Adams, no interruptions, the sound is fine. Good deal. Greg Booth, hey, sounds good. You know Ginger Boatwright? Yes, I do. She used to play with Doug Dillard. The Mayberry days, you're right about that because when I lived in Nashville or Hendersonville, I used to go to a little club called the Bell Cove. And it was weird because there was just a little hole in the wall, but Bill Monroe would play there, I think, on Tuesday night. And all the really good musicians in Hendersonville would gather there. I mean, I used to see a guy named Ron Gaddis that was playing with George Jones, sung just like George. And he was like the Don Rich to Buck Owens that he was the one to George, and they really sounded great together. So I knew the Bell Cove, and I knew very well Doug because he was there a whole lot. And I didn't know Ginger Boatwright, but I knew exactly who she was. But I knew her and Doug played a lot. Greg Booth, I'm going to talk about you here just a little bit before I scoot down. Greg Booth is one of the best dobro players in the world, I think. It's coming from a dobro player. And I'm working on this new dobro CD. We have 23 players right now, and I think I have the greatest players on this CD in the world. It's about done, and I was just very privileged to have Greg Booth on there. If you don't know Greg Booth, when we get done, right now, get you a pen, write down Greg Booth, Google him on YouTube, watch some of his videos, watch Wichita Lineman and see how many times you go back and watch it. First time I watched it, it was about 5 or 6. It's incredible. Greg Booth's a monster player. He plays different than anyone else I've ever heard. It's some of the most beautiful and technical stuff I have ever heard on a dobro. So anyway, check him out. Cody Richardson, good to see you. Greg Pruitt, my old school buddy, a little older than me, but he looks younger. A good friend from the old Gibbs High School, glad to have you. And Brink, my buddy Brink Brinkman, sounding good tonight. And Brad Campbell, great picking buddy right there. Used to play with Doyle Lawson, and he's on there listening. Lynn Lawson, glad to have you. And Sammy Sawyer, that's what I was talking about. Listen, feel a little better. Thanks for the shout out. You are the Barney man. I swear you are. And I got to go on down here real quick because I got to call up Rodney. Mike Scott, glad to have you. That's a long-time buddy right there of mine. But a buddy that goes back just a few years earlier is my buddy Gary Baker. We played in a band called Salt Creek together. And Gary's down in Chattanooga now. But, man, it's good to have all you guys online. We got the most I've had on in a while. And I know it's not me. One thing I want to show you before I call Rodney, I'm proud of this. Hope you guys, if anyone's got doubts on this, think about it a little bit. That's me right there. Got my COVID vaccine. You know, a lot of you folks know I'm battling with cancer and also on dialysis. And if I could get that stuff, it'd knock me out. And I don't know who would be on here. Probably that guy right back there. You just have to look at that screen. But I had to have it, and I hope a lot of you folks will get it. And please, at least wear a mask when you're out somewhere and take care of yourself and let's slow this spread down, okay? We need to do that. Got to slow this spread down because there's a lot of people out there that the healthy folks that won't wear a mask, you can kill some of these people if you have it. I'd be one of them because I'm, what they call borderline high risk. So, and then I do want to say one of my cancer nurses just popped up, Tracy Milligan. She's been my cancer nurse since day one, 10 years. And I just love her to death. She's been so good to me. And same way with all my cancer nurses. But I've had 4 in particular that have been with me from the start. And, I just love them like family. So I'm gonna attempt to call Rodney right now. I'm doing a Facebook call since I didn't get my phone situation straightened out today, and I'm going to have to take it in tomorrow. I think I've got a defective SIM card. So let's try this out and see what I can do here with this. Bear with me. This is flying off the cuff, okay? So let's see. Let me try this out. I think I need to go to Messenger. And let's see what we got here. We'll talk to Rodney. Not sure how long we'll be able to talk to him because he has been sick, but we'll see. Hey, let me plug you in and see if we can hear you on the air. Just a minute. Are you there, Rodney?
I'm half here.
Are you half? Oh, yeah, I know that. Let me turn you up a little bit. See if I can
Yeah,
get you a little bit better in there. I got you wide open
I'm
now.
not over.
Can you? How's that, Rodney? Can you hear?
Good. As long as I'm not over driving you, I'm okay.
Yeah. Can you give me some more overdrive? Can you give me some more volume or
Well,
anything?
in the spring of 1862, a small band of immigrants crossing over the Appalachian Mountains with one spotted dog, a Shanghai rooster, into the Appalachia over the Cumberland Gap, creating a song.
All right. There you go. I thought I had CNN for a minute. Is that not CNN? Let's see, Rodney. I'm trying to
I
get
don't.
you up a little bit more. Can you folks out there hear Rodney? Let me do this.
Hello,
Let me see.
hello out there.
It says
Oh, it's me.
they can hear you. Well, hey, that's good enough. I know I'm a little loud. I'll back up a little bit, but Rodney, we're glad to have
Oh,
you on tonight.
oh, I'm happy to be here, Uncle Phil. How are you?
Buddy, I'm doing good. I've talked about you for the last little bit, and folks know that you've been in the hospital, and are that this. Most people wouldn't have been able to have done this tonight, but I'm glad that you were able to, and you've had got a lot of people online that are here wanting to hear from you. So first of
Well,
all,
I wouldn't have missed this. I would have crawled out the back window of the hospital.
well, I've done things like that before or thought about it, but I did mention now you talk about the crawl out the back door of the hospital. I do remember you in an Andy Griffith episode crawling out a window.
Well, that's true. That was the very first one we did, Phil. It was called The Darlings or something.
The Darlings are
And
coming. Yes. Yep.
The Darlings was the title of the script. That's what my old script says I have here. The Darlings. And we were scheduled to only do one episode.
Uh-huh.
And they had some response that we continued to do one a year for the next 5 years.
Is that right? Okay. Oh, hey, Rodney, let me ask you, are you close to your phone?
Yeah, it's right there. In fact, I got my nose on the screen.
Oh, okay. So your phone, good deal. All right. Because you were just a little weak, and but anyway, I think it's good. Everybody out there says they can hear you. Hey, tell me, uh,
Okay.
Rodney, tell me about kind of from the first. I know a lot of people want to hear about Andy Griffith. Let me turn my microphone down a little bit. Maybe that would help. Just a minute. See if that helps a little bit. Hope I ain't turning you down, Rodney. There we go. All right. Can you hear me now, Rodney?
I can hear you fine.
Oh, good. Now we're to the right level. I wanted to ask you. A lot of folks want to know how. They know that the name of your band was the Dillards, but you when you went on the Andy Griffith Show, it all changed, and I wanted to ask you if you could tell us kind of how you guys got that job.
Okay, I will. If everybody just sit down and grab some popcorn or a loaf of bread and some butter, and I'll tell the story. I don't want to bore everybody.
You're not going to bore
Yeah, it's
anybody.
well. I am from a little town not too far from where I am right now, uh, called Salem, Missouri. That's the closest town that I could say near me, so people might be able to identify where I am. I grew up on this farm that we've had since 1865, and been a family farm. So when got through school, growing up, doing that all that stuff, playing music with my dad and my brother and different things, and decided when I went to college, I was going to Southern Illinois University. I decided that I this wasn't for me. I just didn't fit in. I just couldn't let go of the guitar. So we decided after just a few months, myself and another fellow by the name of Dean Webb, who was playing in a local television show band in Jeff City, Missouri, Jeff City or Kansas. Anyway, we just got together and we started playing, and we decided to go to Los Angeles to see what we could do with the music. We had done already our first. I'm jumping ahead. We did a little concert at Washington University, which is the very first live performance that we did as that particular group. And we did that. Then we decided that would be something to do. We would go to Los Angeles. So we took a '55 Cadillac, a one-wheel trailer, and $9.60 some cents, and headed to California, leaving Missouri. Of course, we weren't used to large sums of money like that till we only it lasted about 6 weeks. But anyway, we got to Oklahoma City as far as we got. Run out of money. Started working all kinds of jobs and doing different things, and fighting over crackers in the wastebasket, and the wide MCA, and all kinds of stuff. But to make a long story as short as I could possibly plan, we made enough money to get in the car and drive to Los Angeles. So we started out and got to Los Angeles. The first night we got in town, we went down we'd heard about this club called the Ashbro, where seemed to be all the folk music was happening at the time, and different things, and some bluegrass people and stuff. And so we checked into a motel there on Melrose, near where this Ashbro is, which later became the Comedy Store.
Okay.
And so here we were, walked into this place, and took out our instruments like kids would do, and started playing right there in the front, in the lobby. And the fella who came up to us and said, who owned the place, said, "You can't do this here." He said, "Do it on stage." So he gave us an opportunity to perform that night on stage. Bless his heart, Ed Pearl was his name, and he just passed away a couple of days ago.
Sorry to hear that.
But it so happened that night, it was the perfect storm, so it were, that Jim Dixon, who represented a producer, and a producer who produced for record labels, and he was producing things for Elektra Records. And Elektra had just moved out to the West Coast. And so we ended up making a record deal with Elektra Records, and about a week later, they put a little blurb in Variety that said, Elektra Records signs these weird-looking, funny guys from the Ozarks to play this kind of odd music. Andy saw this. They were sitting there with his producers.
Really?
And they saw this. Yeah, they're getting ready to do The Darlings Are Coming. They had the script. They had no performers. So he saw the Variety thing. He says, "Call them boys up and tell them to come over here." So they called us, and here we go. 1 week in Los Angeles. Here we are, going over to Desilu Studios, which was called then, now in Northwestern.
Right.
And we walked into Desilu Studios where all the big shows were being shot, and there was the big sound stage, and it said, "The Andy Griffith Show."
Wow.
So we walked into the big old barn of a place, and they were shooting an episode, I think, where Don Knotts was singing off in the choir.
Oh, yeah. Great one.
Yeah. So they stopped the recording, and there we were right on the sound stage, and Andy and Bob Sweeney, the director, got a couple of those folding chairs, pulled them up right in front of us, and we just stood right there, and he said, "Please show us what you got." So we kicked off Reuben Springs for whatever reason, I don't know. I guess we were trying to show off.
Right.
Got halfway through it. Andy slapped his knees and said, "That's it." And I turned to my brother Douglas and said, "Well, they're kicking us out." And as we started to leave, I said, "Where are you going?" He said, "You got the team." And that's how we made it on to the Andy Griffith Show. And
wow,
it's just an amazing, amazing thing over the years. The funny thing about it, Phil, and it's just odd about the career, we were known as the Darlings on the Andy Griffith Show. Of course, we got screen credit, Dillard as the Darlings. And then we were the Dillards, making all this other kind of music we were making and stirring up things on the coast by, I was adding different drums and orchestra and stuff to the bluegrass.
Sure.
And started creating a country rock, which hadn't really been explored, which I got credit for, as arrogant as I sound, from Rolling Stone, as being innovators of that.
Right.
Of course, this is for the Burritos and the Birds and all those other people, and Crosby, Stills, and what's his name?
Nash.
And so that's it. That's how it all started, just that way. And then we did one of those for the year and kept friends with the people on the Andy. The Andy Griffith Show was the very first national television show that we did when we got to L.A. We did more than that, but I was so glad to be introduced to that TV end of it, to the Andy Griffith Show rather than the other ones. But some of them were just really
Sure.
painful to do. We did Judy Garland, and that was not as pleasant. But there's a lot of different things going on. But Andy, that, I just have fond memories of that set being real people, real times. We all stayed friends over the years, which normally you don't see a lot of that.
No, you don't. You don't. Well, I was going to ask you when you were talking about, when you came on set and all that stuff. Now, I don't know if I'm looking at this right, but I got a friend named Leroy Mack, and I know he and Clarence White was in a band called the Country Boys. Now,
Absolutely.
they did an episode or something. Was that before or after you guys?
Country Boys were on before. As a matter of fact, I sat down here when I was still in high school. I can't remember last year. Anyway, I saw them on there, and so I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. And it was Clarence, Leroy Mack, and Billy Ray Latham, and it might have been Eric. I can't remember if Eric White was one of them or not.
Okay.
Okay. And of course, Roland.
And Roland. Oh, yeah, Roland for sure. Well, let me ask you a question, because I don't want to keep you all night. I know you've been sick, but it's always good talking to you. Tell me a little bit about working with Andy Griffith.
Well, I could narrow it down to things that I knew about Andy Griffith that people don't know, and
Sure.
always people in the business, especially these reviewers or people who try to prove themselves by finding all the negativity they can about people. I can tell you, Andy was gracious. He had that old Southern value system that a lot of us grew up with, and he was so nice to us. He loved kickers anyway, and he loved music, and he loved bluegrass.
Right.
Yeah. And I'll tell you a little secret. Well, it's not going to be a secret now, but back then, Phil, actors did not make any money in residuals, what they call rerun.
Right.
And back then, they hired us to play and not speak, so they wouldn't have to. Because they had this idea: if we have these hillbillies on that don't say anything,
No
play
royalties,
music.
right?
Yeah, like Daryl, my other brother Daryl.
Mm-hmm.
So he come up to us. He says, "Now, boys, you're not going to make any money residuals on this. In fact, we're paying you through the musician team." And I think on the first show, of course, things changed after that, but I think we all made $300 apiece as musicians. Shock, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
But here is the kicker. Here is the kicker. Andy came up to us, and I'll never forget this. He said, "Now, boys," he says, "I'll tell you what. He said, you don't not make any money as players or actors." He said, "But I'm going to get as many songs on the show as I can of yours that you've written." Now, that whole production company could have said, "We'll do all PD and we'll take the money and not have to pay anybody."
Sure.
We got an average of every show at least 5 shots of our songs before they started cutting. No, but we still got that average of 5 songs per show for all those years to continue to pay from day one.
Wow.
Yes.
Andy took care of you, didn't he?
Andy took care of us. Yes, he did.
Wow.
I mean, he could have not, but he sure did. He thought, and I know he loved the music and he understood the heart of what we were doing, and he was a part of that. He protected us.
Well, it seems like even if you don't play, or no, let's say you do play, it seems like when you pull out a musical instrument, it seems to break a lot of ice with people, just like Andy. I mean, here you guys come in and had something in common with him that probably the other folks on the show didn't, that you guys were musicians. And
that's now people who were curious about us after the first show, guys like Kenny Curtis, from who played what's it, Fester? What was his name on Gunsmoke? Gunsmoke. he came over, and different people would come over because they were curious about who we were and curious about the music. But you're right. You know, Andy always loved to paint. The neat thing I like to talk about is I was talking to someone from Martin Guitar the other day. That old D18 that Andy used on that show,
Mm-hmm.
on the Andy, and I used to sit there, off stream and play it.
Mm-hmm.
It was that D18 Martin was in a movie called Face in the Crowd that Andy was in. One of Andy's best works, Face in the Crowd. You ought to look it up and watch it.
Face in the Crowd, you say?
Yeah.
Okay.
He played a guy, Lonesome Rhodes, and became big star,
Mm-hmm.
and it's an incredible movie. And he had this old black guitar in that movie. Well, that black guitar is the D18 that when he left that movie, he took that guitar with him, had the finish taken off, and the pick guard.
Wow. So it was It was painted at one time.
Yeah, on the Face in the Crowd.
Had no idea about that. See, I always learn. I always learn stuff from you. Anytime we sit and talk, it's just, some of your stories are just always amazing to me because it's stuff that I grew up. I saw you before I ever played music, and it still blows my mind. Me and you've been buddies for a while now, and it's just that reality check sometimes, and I learned a lot of stuff from you that I just couldn't imagine years ago being able to sit and talk to you about some of these things that I learned talking with you about.
Well, Phil, I have to ask you too. How did you get interested in the dobro? Because I played a little dobro back then.
I knew that.
And I just got me a new one here.
Did you really?
And yeah, it's a R.Q. Jones.
Oh yeah. Oh, you didn't get a new one. You found an old good one, didn't you?
No, they're starting to manufacture them again.
Oh yeah. Wait a minute. That's right. I heard that. I've got I've got an original R.Q. Jones, and I'll tell you a funny story about this. I bought it from Jerry Douglas back during the World's Fair, and I sold it later on when my son was born. Well, this guitar passed around, and it wound up getting over to Jerry Douglas. So I knew Jerry had it, so I bought it back a few months ago, and I found out Jerry had a R.Q. Jones just like mine, and his had no binding on it, and mine had binding on it. And I had several people come to me, including my son. My son said, "Dad, I saw Jerry's guitar at the Country Music Hall of Fame, and you said it don't have binding. This guitar had binding." And it just didn't make no sense. And when I bought it back, he gave me a letter from the Hall of Fame that he wanted his guitar out of the Hall of Fame to play it, and he put mine in. So my guitar's been in the Country Music Hall of Fame with,
It's your dobro.
Yeah, it's cool. But you asked how I got started. My brother played banjo, and I'll tell you this real quick. I was in the school band, and my dad hated it because my dad played banjo and loved bluegrass, and he didn't like horns, and he didn't like stuff like that. And I remember I got a saxophone, and he would make me go out in the woods and practice. And the neighbors would come up, and they would pull in the driveway, and they wouldn't knock on the door. They would just hear me out in the woods. And I was pretty bad, so my brother played banjo, and I used to go in his room and listen to his records, and he had some Flat and Scruggs stuff, and I heard a dobro player that I didn't know what it was, but I knew I liked it. It was Josh. So I got started doing lessons, and it was funny. My teacher, I don't think he knew how to play dobro either. He was a banjo player, and a great teacher. And he would come in early, and I think he would stay about 30 minutes ahead of me each week on lessons. So I took 4 or 5 lessons that I found out I could learn it all, the rest by ear, and that's kind of what I've done. But good luck with your dobro. That's great.
They sent it to me, and it's just a beautiful thing. And over the years, my gosh, Bill, when I first was a kid, I started out with the old F-hole, I guess it was a National.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And then I had 2 of the whole heavy nickel-silver German the nickel-plated nationals.
Yeah. Wow.
And then I ended up with two more later when I came here to Branson. I bought them. They were consecutive serial numbers of the
Wow.
ones, with the palm trees on them.
Mm-hmm. I do. How
And
many
I've had,
guitars you got now like that? Any resonator guitars?
well, actually, I only have the one. I must tell you this, and it's a very sad story. I had several good Dobros, over the years.
Mm-hmm.
I had Byron Berline gave me a 1927 Dobro
Wow.
before the Dobro just went to El Monte.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, it was stolen.
Man.
So it's out there floating around somewhere, and I'm so sorry that I lost it. But
I didn't steal it, so don't blame me.
well,
Okay.
well, you were the first person I was going to ask. But I wanted to tell you about your dobro. I enjoy your dobro playing a lot. You have your own style.
Thanks.
You don't sound like anybody else, and that, of course, is to me, is the answer to success. And that's how everybody who has been successful, struck the road out on their own and not followed anybody else.
Well, thank you
Yeah.
on that. I've always, admired your work, and I've always hoped that we get a chance to pick some together, and we just about did at Song of the Mountains, and I was in the hospital, I think, that week. So
Yeah, and I meant every word I said. I missed you. It'd have been fun, but we have that to do again. We didn't do it this year because of circumstances. We could have, and Tim, I can do that show, and the next time we do it, it'd be nice if you and I could do that together, and
you
we
call
do
me.
some of that stuff.
Call me. I'll be
I
there
will.
on that. Well, I don't want to keep you long. I'm going to move along just a little. I make myself a few notes, but tell me a little bit about Denver Powell, Briscoe, darling.
I sure will. Denver was a dear friend, funny sense of humor. The guy would he had one of his best. People can't see this because it's visual, but he had a lot of time just sitting around the set because you have to set up, shoot the scene, and they shot it with one camera. So you had a lot of times in between, just sit around and throw darts, and Don and Andy would throw darts at the dartboard
Really?
and recorders and stuff. And we'd tell stories, and Denver always had a funny story. One of his best bits was a hound dog laying on a porch, raising up, doing a low bark, and laying his head back down. and he would do stuff like that. He's just a fun guy. He grew up in Colorado, 4 kids, Manny. I think they lived in a sod hut. And
Really?
he made it. Yeah, I think he got there and went to school. His sister, and they all did well. And of course, I got one story about it. I'll tell you the
Sure.
story quick.
Hey, the night's yours, buddy.
Well, here we are at the Andy Griffith, and we used to hang out together a lot and have dinner together when Denver would come. In fact, he came out here where I live in Branson and stayed with me a couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm digressing here, but I was with Jim Stafford at the time in his show,
Mm-hmm.
and I brought Denver on in a packed night on a Saturday night in Branson, Missouri, and you would have thought that Elvis had entered the building.
Wow.
Denver Powell walked on that. I found a jug and a hat that we did Dewey together, and the people just went nuts. And it was just so good to see and good for Denver. But anyway, back here we are. There was a scene for Doug and I and Pa Denver were to go through the sheriff's doors and pick up Doug Wash and carry him out because he's about to get into it with the sheriff. And there was that scene where Doug and I going to pick him up. At the time, happened to be Bob Denver, Gilligan's Island.
Oh, yeah,
Played Doug
sure.
Wash.
Sure.
So we're standing outside ready to go in, break in the doors. And Denver's standing there. We're getting ready to go in. They're getting ready to get the cameras up to speed, getting the lighting all set. And Denver started talking to Doug and I. He said, I wasn't always an actor. He said, no. He said, I was a drummer for one of the Dorsey brothers. I said, well, I didn't know that, Denver. He said, yeah. He said, I remember my first acting job. He beat, and then he said, yeah, I was to walk up to John Wayne, come out the cabin doors, point down the river, and look at John Wayne and point down the river and say, look, fur smugglers. Well, he said, I went home and practiced that line, first line in the movie, and it was with John Wayne. He said, I practiced, and he said, the next morning, he said, we was on the set. They said, ready, he got ready for the action. John was standing outside the cabin, and they said, action to me, and I run out on the front porch, and I looked at John, and I pointed down the river, and I said, look, smurfugglers. And at the time he said that, and Doug and I started to laugh, they said action to us. and we had to go through that door with that long face.
How did that's something that
He would do stuff.
well, how did
He would,
you
yeah,
guys
he'd do stuff
always
like
keep? How did you always keep the long face on there? I mean, without
wasn't easy.
I can't imagine. I mean, without breaking character, I don't see how you did.
Well, see, at that time, everybody was so. There was no uptightness on that set. There was nothing. It was just so easy. It was so
Sure.
easy, and so nobody was intimidated by anything. So we were. There was a lot of breakups. A lot of times. It was funny. And one time we were all. It was called the Mountain Wedding, and and
I
when
remember
Andy and
that.
Barney came in, spent the night. So they had to sleep in the chair, right? And we were all in that one bed. So we started snoring. It was the snoring scene. So we started snoring, and they were getting ready. They were, gonna, and all of a sudden, Andy broke out laughing. So we do the take again. We kept doing the take. Somebody would lose it, and every time nobody could keep it, together. Finally, the assistant director come up and said, "All right, this is costing us money, guys. We've got to get this shot. We've been at this almost all morning, and there's other scenes we got to get. So everybody, just let's be professional. Let's do this." He's talking to Andy and everybody, the assistant director, right? So he said, "Okay, everybody on the bell, action!" And we started snoring again. The assistant director broke out laughing. So he finally said, "Break for lunch." So we had to come back and shoot that scene after lunch.
I didn't know that. That's one of my favorite episodes. And speaking of that one, someone here wanted to know if Ernest T ever really hit you with a rock.
No, he never. All he threw was those fun drops. He never hurt the guy.
Yeah, that's what I was. That's what I was going to say. I don't think he was really throwing the big rocks, but
And Ernest T. People would say, "What was Ernest T. like?" And I said, the difference between Howard Morris and Ernest T. were the clothes. Actually, that's who Howard Morris was. How he was Ernest T.
Was it really?
He was like, yeah, he was like your aunt's Pekingese. He was just always on, feisty, a lot of energy. When we did the movie Return to Mayberry, he had just barely gotten over a quadruple heart bypass
Well, I didn't know that.
and married his wife for the 4th time, same one. Yeah, he danced to that. If you'll notice in the movie, he said, "How about a little pig on the piano?" And he shot that scene several times of him dancing around. I thought, how in the world he got that energy? But he did. He did.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's always good.
We all had
It's good to hear that people's character is a lot like they are in real life. That means a lot, because there's lots of people out there that, that you see on TV and approach them, and they're bad folks, and it's always good to hear this.
Yeah, and Charlene is as sweet as she is. She was on TV. She's that sweeter off. She's a beautiful lady.
Well,
And just kind, and she's just wonderful.
my buddy Sammy Sawyer here in Knoxville that does Barney had you and her over for the fair about a year or two ago. And
I'm well aware of that.
yeah,
Sammy do.
she fell in the airport and broke an arm or something, didn't she?
Yes, she did. Coming back, she did. She had some falls. Well, she's gotten, in her dotage, like the rest of us has. And she's had a few falls, but and a few rough times. But she just got over COVID.
Really?
And so she's doing fairly well now, and just her old self again.
That's
But yeah,
that's awesome.
it's just. But it was just that was a very pleasant experience in all the years of entertainment. All the other stuff, my gosh, after we got out there and had done a show, all of a sudden you get hot out there. All of a sudden everybody wants you on the show. That's why we signed to do all those Garland shows and the Tennis Journey Forward. And Don Knotts specials. I did 3 of his.
Wow.
And he had, along with who was on those shows? Gina Lola Brigida, the comedian. Can't remember his name. Had his own show. The one that had
Red
Earl, my other
Skelton?
brother, Derek.
Red Skelton, sorry.
Bob Newhart.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I did a show with Bob, and then I had the opportunity to do a whole comic bit with Don Knotts over a harmonica routine, and
Mm.
that was a lot of fun. And I just got to work with a lot of neat people, and that was a great show too. Don had he, the leadership always leads the vibe in the room, if you know what I mean.
Oh, sure. Sure it does.
And working with Don was so pleasant, so fun, and of course we did a lot of other things, a lot of Dick Clark. I think I did 3 or 4 Dick Clark
Wow.
handstands, believe it or not. I mean, we were all over the place. Here's
Man,
this bluegrass group.
you guys were movie stars. You really were, you know. And I'm going to ask you a couple more things, and I'm going to get on to the Dillards and talk about them just a little bit of the things you guys did outside of most people know you from the Andy Griffith Show, but I want to talk about the Dillards a little. But I got a couple of questions for you left. The song "There Comes a Time" that was probably one of your most popular tunes during that time. I imagine the Dillards or the Darlings, wasn't it?
Well, probably that, and believe it or not, Dooley.
Dooley, yeah, Dooley.
And they're totally opposite kind of
Oh
song.
yeah, definitely.
Yep.
The
I mean, Porter Wagoner and Dolly cut Dooley 3 times,
really,
and Grandpa Jones recorded it. The King Strung Trio were the first ones to record it back when they were
right.
still kicking.
They were big.
And but there is a time, it just I don't know, it just happened to have stuck around. Alan Jackson recorded it recently.
I didn't know that.
And yeah, and those I think those 2 might be the strong ones that we wrote. But
Wow. That's pretty big.
And
Pretty big songs right there, Rodney, to have. And
I've been very blessed, Bill. I've been blessed over the years, being the kind of person I am, to have what that God has given me.
he's been good to you, buddy. You know,
Yes, he has.
he's been good to all of us. He really has. I mean, it's not always about being good to you in your line of work, but I know in my case, being good to you in your health, keeping us around to be able to do things like this, it's it's been good for me. I mean, it's 10 years ago next month I got diagnosed with cancer, and I thought back then it was like, you weren't supposed to live with this stuff, but I found out that you can, and God's been good to us.
I have followed you, all through this, of course with Facebook and everything.
I know.
And you are amazing. Even this little bit
Thank
of
you.
stuff that I went through by losing half my blood
It's
is
not
nothing.
little. That's not little.
No, but nothing to what you've gone through. You just got a lot of strength in you, and I'm sure you draw a lot of it from God. And
Thank you, buddy.
but it's just you've been really amazing. Really, it's just
That means a lot, and I hear Beverly in the background. We're going to talk about her in just a few minutes
well,
because
she's tough.
she knows you better than you do.
Oh, yes, she does.
I was giving him water, Phil. We got to keep him from getting
Dehydrated.
Yeah.
Oh, give him a drink and pour some on his head. That'll keep him wet and keep him hydrated.
Yeah, that's good.
Pretty good.
I was just telling him that maybe you can come up and see us. I don't know the date, but it's April. We've rescheduled Granville, Tennessee for the Mayberry and I Love Lucy Museum.
Oh wow, I'd love to
Yeah.
do that. Where?
Yeah, I don't know the exact date. He's just going to do a meet and greet, and we're going to do 2 or 3 songs.
Okay.
It's just, one of those things, we couldn't do it last year.
I would.
So
I'd
we're
love
gonna
to.
try to do it this
I
year.
would love to do that. So the town is what town in Tennessee did you say? Brandville.
Granville,
Oh, okay,
not far from you.
okay. We'll
They have a museum that
you can message
and
me.
I Love Lucy.
You can message me that. I'd love to. I'd love to go see that. Or will it be people
Come
from?
and bring your trophy.
Oh, I will. I'll do
Bring
that.
or I'll bring mine. You can play it.
Hey, I'd like to try it out, but I'll bring mine too, just in case. But
I will bring.
Beverly, message me and remind me of the date on that, so I can see about coming.
I
Okay.
sure will.
All right, that'd be
So I'll
good.
look at that date. I know it's April,
Okay.
It's just Rodney and I. It's mainly a meet and greet for the museum, and then a couple of songs. And I'll message you on the date.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I'll be there if I'm not sick or in the hospital. I'll be there. Okay. Count on it.
Well, we pray that doesn't happen.
Yeah, we're not going to let that happen. I got to hear you play some. I got to steal some licks from you.
Oh, I don't know about that. You could have them. They won't help you much, but you can have them. Have all of them. Let's see. I want to mention we were talking. I did want to mention the members of people that didn't know the members of the Darlings, which were the Dillards, was your brother Doug Dillard and Dean Webb and Mitch
Yes.
Jade. And I used to
Yes.
hang out with your brother a little bit at a little place called the Bell Cove over in Hendersonville. He was over there pretty regular picking that banjo, and
Wow.
got to know him pretty good. He would come over and the Reno brothers, Don Wayne and Dale was always over there, and they would pick on stage most of the time. I would go over and watch, but I was sorry to hear about the passing of your brother several years or quite a few years back. And
Yeah.
anyway, I lost my oldest brother. I was 5 years old, so I didn't have any memories of him like you do Doug. I mean, you can sit around and tell stories about you and Doug, and I don't remember nothing about mine. So I guess it's a blessing. It's always hard to lose them, but if you can keep them for a while, it's pretty good, and have good memories and good holiday memories and stuff like that.
Sure. And this life is temporal anyway, so
Yep.
we have to keep that in mind also.
We really do. And buddy, I just thank you. I thank you for being on tonight. And we want to talk about the Dillards a little bit now. Well, before we go, I told people I would ask this, and we did this at Bean Blossom. Can you tell me two unknown stories from Mayberry that folks may not know about, but are either funny or cool stories? Something that they can say, wow, I didn't know that. Would you care to tell a couple of stories?
Well, there's one story that I can tell you that Andy was always playing tricks on Don.
Mm-hmm.
And one time Don had found in an antique store. I don't know if I told it. Maybe
I didn't
but
know.
this is the one I know that nobody knows too much. Maybe I told it up there with you. I don't know. Stop me if you've heard it. And he had bought one of these little tater back mandolins, the round back ones.
I do.
And I think he bought it at a yard sale maybe, and he brought it in and thought he really had an antique on his hand. So he took it and showing Andy because Andy loves instruments. Andy had an old National GoPro too.
I didn't know that.
And in fact, we did the movie. He brought it out for me to see, and he said, "You think I ought to play this on the show, on this movie?" I said, "Yeah. If you'll watch the movie, you'll see it hanging on the wall." And he pulls it down off the wall of the cabin.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, I digress. But anyway, so Don thought really had an antique there. So Andy said, "You know what?" He said, "I got somebody who will appraise that for you, and I'll bring it back to you in a few days, and we'll find out what you got here." So Andy took it, filled it full of dirt, put a potted plant in it, and brought it back to Don, handed it to him.
What did Don do?
What did he do? How he reacted to it,
Mm.
Yeah, his mouth dropped, but Andy would pull stuff like that.
So Don thought he had an heirloom or expensive antique, Stradivarius probably.
Yeah, of course, those things, those tater bugs,
Not worth much.
too much. No. But that was that story on that, and I'm trying. Oh, I can't tell that story because I've told that story so many times. I think everybody knows.
I think it's probably new to a lot of my people, though. Why don't you tell it? It's fun. Everything you tell is funny, I think.
I tell it at Baptist Church, and I'll tell this for the folks out there. We had done the first show, okay, and I was living out there in Hollywood. And I forgot where we were. Maybe we're in Topanga Canyon because we wanted to get out in the mountains.
Uh-huh.
So my brother and I and Doug got a place together. But I had got a dog. I've been out there, and it was one of these Malamutes.
Uh-huh.
And Malamutes are very territorial animals. And this dog was like 2 years old, and he was tough. And so I took him down to Hollywood to the vet down there on La Cienega, I think it was, Hollywood. And I took him in to get him checked out. And he's a big old dog. He had him on a chain and everything, and had him in there. And in the front door of the veterinarian place came Aunt Bee with a little dog under her arm. She had one of those little foo-foo dogs, you know. And she had this dog, and she saw me from across the room. And here, having done the first show and not being really that good at communicating, I was still very, you know, kind of a bashful country kid. And,
Sure.
and she saw me from across the room. She says, "Oh, Rodney, Rodney, Rodney!" She come over and started talking to him. She had this little dog under her arm, and we were talking. And all of a sudden, she got this glazy stare, kind of looking me dead in the eye, and went, "Oh, whoa!" And I followed her gaze down. And my dog was marking his territory on Aunt Bee's leg. True.
What did she do after that?
You know, I was embarrassed. I didn't know what to do. I thought, well, I'll tell you what she did. When we did the next show, she would bake me brownies, and she made these baskets of fruit and things that she had, and
Wow.
she'd always bring me little. And she was very. She gave me some advice. She says, "Rodney," she says, "this is a terrible business. You should go home."
It's a good thing you didn't. You at $6.31 wouldn't have got you far, would it? Going back home. I don't think.
No, you're right, Phil. No, but
I'll say one thing. I don't know if it's true. You can tell me, but I heard Aunt Bee had a house full of cats. Was that right?
yeah,
In real life?
she had quite a few cats. Yeah.
Yeah.
When we did the movie, Andy, she called Andy, because I know that everybody thought there was this thing between her and Andy. She called Andy to help settle her affairs when she was at.
Really?
Yeah, she called Andy to do it. So
That's good. You guys were, you know, you hear all these stories about people not getting along, and it's good to hear the stories from you that there was a lot more friendship there than people realized. And you have to have that when you work together, you know.
well, of course, you have to camaraderie, but the thing, you know, let's just face it. There's a certain how do I say this? Negative spirituality that feeds on negativity
Oh, yeah.
on the planet, and we know what that is. And we have to really combat that, be aware of it, and fight it tooth and nail.
Right. And, you know, I always tell people you just can't believe, you know, the things you read on the internet. And
No.
there's so much stuff on there. You can hear a story about somebody and it's just the best story, and then you hear one that's real negative, and truth's kind of in between. But, you know, I always liked the old joke they always had that you can't believe everything that you hear on the internet that was supposed to be said by George Washington. So think about that. You know, they put it on Facebook as a little quote: "Don't believe everything you read on the internet, George Washington," or it'll be Abraham Lincoln. So, you know.
Well, it's very interesting. I wrote a song, Beverly and I did, about what's going on. And, you know, it's like I said educated pundits trying to make their mark. And then I said talking heads on TV speaking each other's words like a cage of squawking birds. They don't listen. They just repeat what they hear. It's like
Sure
it's
they
like
do.
a huge internet. It's a huge internet whisper game.
It is.
Everybody talks and they repeat what other people say, so you will never know what the truth is.
No, truth somewhere in the middle, you know, usually. And it's sad it's that way, and the internet and stuff has made it so much worse, I think. But anyway, buddy, still ain't gonna tie you up, but I still gotta ask you a couple more things. Let's get on to the Dillards just a little bit. You guys were big stars back in the time. You won't admit that, but you guys toured with the Rolling Stone, or well, you guys toured with Elton John. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah, Elton John. Douglas is the one who hung out with Mick Jagger. When we were over in England, Mick Jagger came by and picked up Douglas about 3 in the morning.
Yeah, this
Douglas
story's the
didn't have
one I
any-
want. This story's the one I want.
Well, yeah, he did. Douglas didn't have any socks on, or anything. Jagger just, you know how that was in those days. So they went to some little place and bought socks, and he and Jagger went out to Stonehenge and snuck in. They snuck in the middle, like, in the wee hours of the morning, and they got run out, of course. But that was a story.
That's the one I wanted you to tell. I mean, there's not too many people who can say they run off with Mick Jagger and broke into Stonehenge. So I think you told me once, wasn't it, or am I imagining that the cops or something knew them and came to the show the next day, the guards or something like that?
Yeah, But that happened while I was over there, because here's how Douglas got over there. We were over there. Douglas wasn't with me anymore. He'd left years ago.
Right.
But, he had his
Start his own band.
and we were over there together. Cause gosh, it wasn't like we became the Martins and the McCoys or something, but Hatfields and McCoys. But no, we were and where was I going with this? Oh, Doug was over there because he was promoting a single that he had on Warner Brothers Records in over there, that he had was given as a birthday present by Harry Nilsson to Douglas. Harry Nilsson,
Yeah, I do. That's
well, he had cut a track with beautiful horns and all this stuff with George Tipton arrangements, and I mean it was knocked out.
Yes.
Gave it to Douglas for his birthday and put Douglas's voice on it.
Really?
And so Douglas was over there promoting this big single, and that's where he hooked up with Jagger.
Wow, that's a cool story right there. You had told me that before, but it's good every time. I mean, did you know Jagger? Did you know any of those guys?
I didn't know Jagger. The closest I ever got to any of those kind of guys is Derek Taylor was part of our management team with Jim Dixon and Eddie Tickner, who managed the Bird. They managed the Dillards also.
Right, sure.
But Derek Taylor was the PR person for the Beatles when they hit the United States that first time. And so Derek was part of our team, and so the closest I got is one night Derek said, "Don't say anything. Said, I just call your brother Doug." He said, "Come up to somewhere on some address up in the Hollywood Hills." He said, "We're having a small dinner party," and he said Brian Epstein's going to be there.
Wow.
So Douglas and I went up there, and there was Frank Zappa, the Association, and I know 2 or 3 other of those big dudes.
Wow.
And Brian Epstein. We all had dinner that night, and stayed
That
the
is
late hours.
Buddy, that's cool.
Here's the funny thing. We were standing out, Doug and I, out there with Epstein on the back balcony of this beautiful home overlooking the valley there, and Brian Epstein started talking about Bill Monroe.
Wow.
Brian Epstein knew who Bill Monroe was, very familiar with Bill Monroe music. I thought that was quite a shock.
That's amazing. You never know, do you? You never know who's listening. And I know Bill Monroe, his music, so many people knew him. And also, Flatt and Scruggs from Beverly Hillbillies. They became, big, big celebrities and known by a lot of, the Hollywood guys. And it's kind of funny how a lot of the music we play, especially in bluegrass, you just don't think it's being heard. And then you got guys like Steve Martin that step forward and come to the award show and plays banjo, and you just never know who's into this music or is familiar with it.
That's true. Steve Martin would open for us when we played in West Hollywood. He would with his balloon magic act.
I really thought he was great back then with all the comedy and
I think he's done so much, and I've known him all these years, and he says a lot of nice things. And I've talked to him not too long ago, and he to me, he's a good man. They're very. There's a lot of good people. Everybody thinks all of Hollywood is just full of satanic witches, but there's a lot of good folks out there, a lot of good people.
Sure.
Him and of course John McEwen of the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, one of my dear friends. In fact, I just got off the phone for him a while ago. We were talking about the Circle Be Unbroken album and how that all came about, and I'm going to write a piece about that.
That was a huge undertaking right there with that record. I mean, it's still talked about so highly today, And
Oh my, yeah. I mean, that was the John and I talked about that for about an hour, but yeah, John and a lot of good people came out of that '60s era of
oh
music
yeah,
that was an interesting time, and different one of them. I know that Chris Hillman uh, uh, is a Christian, and and uh, and he and Herb Peterson play together a lot. You know,
yeah.
Herb was in my band.
Herb the Great Guy. Yeah, definitely. So I
Yeah,
saw Herb. I guess they didn't have the album made this year, but I think it was last year that I got to visit Herb. He's just a great guy, and I've always admired his music. I mean, even on through the Desert Rose Band, they had some good music, and
they sure did.
Herb's awesome. But
Yeah, I tell you, Sweet Straw Sweet was a turning point. To me, that's where my personal career really began. With Sweet Straw Sweet, when I brought Herb into the band and we cut that album with he and I doing those harmonies.
wow, what year
You
was
know,
that now? Our estimate.
I want to mention to be real crass. You know, I have a new album with Herb on.
Oh, do you? We need to talk about your new album then, because I knew I knew that you had. I don't know if I'm right about this, but I knew you had a album that had kind of been waiting in the can,
Yeah.
and you were getting approval on it, and it's got everybody on it. Tell us some people on that record.
Well, the record just came out a little while ago, and it came out #1 on Amazon
Wow.
release. It hit the global charts. It's been in the you know these charts are so cut up now, and you don't know what's what. But it's been on several European charts,
Wow.
and it's on Pine Castle. It's on Pine Castle.
Really? And Lonnie Lasseter's on here listening tonight. Lonnie's got to send me one of those.
So, yeah, well, tell Lottie, yeah, he let a good thing out of the chute there. I hope it does well, but it was something that I really wanted to get out
Hmm.
because it has Herb Peterson singing the vocals with me and
Wow.
Beverly.
Well, that's
It has
awesome.
it has Don Henley singing duets and vocals with me and Beverly
Wow.
for the Eagles, and then it has Bernie Ledden playing banjos on a couple
Mhm.
of cuts, and
Well,
it has Ricky Skaggs singing a song with me called "They're Tearing Our Liberty Down," and the Whites are singing on it with us,
right.
and Sam Bush is with me. Oh my goodness, yeah, Gary Smith, the our bass player.
Right. Well,
You know Gary, don't you?
yeah, I know the name. I don't know him personally, but I know
Yes,
know who he is. So
yeah, he has a clinic in Nashville. He's a doctor.
I didn't know that. He's good to have in your band, then, isn't he?
Now these days it is, yeah, but he's a tremendous player.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this album, I wanted to book into it to Wheat Straw Sweet,
Uh-huh.
and I sent this album out when it was done to Jack Holtzman, who owned Elektra Records and signed the Doors and all those.
Yeah,
people.
sure.
And I said, Jack, I haven't talked to you in years, but what do you think of this? And doggone it, he called me back and said, I want to help you make this record happen. He loved the record. So in fact, he did the liner notes on the record,
Uh huh.
and John McEwen did some notes on it. I just had all the people on there that I've always loved and respected over the years,
Right.
and that's who I wanted. I didn't want to make a big event. I didn't want a name dropping album.
I
I wanted an
understand.
album. I wanted an album that was significant in my life. I mean, Henley, before he ever made it, I knew him back then, and he was a tremendous talent, writer, young
Man.
kid, man.
He's
And I knew
incredible.
he was yeah, good guy. And then, of course, Herb, and then everybody else, Ricky Skaggs, and he was brave enough to do this Tearing Our Liberty Down record, which
Mm.
I'll tell you, it ain't for people who don't take a stand. You'll have to listen to it.
Send me. I'll get Lonnie. See about him sending me one of those out. I'd like to have it. Like to listen to it.
Oh.
And sounds like a great album. You got some great talent on there for sure.
Well, yeah, Beverly and the preacher out of Mississippi wrote "Tearing Our Liberty Down," and one of the lines is the amber grains aren't waving like before.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Who wrote the song?
Beverly and a fella out of Mississippi, a preacher.
Wow. She get her some
Yes.
writing credits there.
Oh yeah, she wrote a couple more on there. She and I and John Vesner, who wrote "Where Have You Been," for Kathy Mattea.
Kathy Mattea, right?
That, in fact, that's her husband.
Yeah, I was getting ready to
And
say, are they still married? So they are. That's
oh,
good. That's good.
oh yeah,
Yeah, that
oh
was
yeah.
that was a big song. I remember that album. Matter of fact, I've got it here somewhere. That can't remember the name of the album, but I remember the song "Where You Been" and 18 Wheels and a Dozen Roses and all that stuff was on that album. Really,
Yeah, he
really
got a
good.
good Grammys, man. But he came up here one Sunday afternoon. We sat up here and looked out over the lake, and he and I and Beverly wrote this song called "Common Man," Life of a Common Man.
Hmm.
And it's different. It's not the way you would sing bluegrass. What am I trying to say? It's not the traditional mountain experience of what bluegrass was to me when I was growing up.
Right, I understand.
And now I'm hearing bluegrass, and it's sounding more country with bluegrass instruments.
Yeah,
Country
it is. It is. It's it's like anything. It's had to change a little bit. In a lot of cases, in bluegrass, it's changed a lot. Because there was a time I remember when if you pulled out an electric bass, they would run you back in the car. You couldn't do that. And I know one time when I played with J.D. Crowe, which we did one of your songs, or it was did before me, the Old Home Place. That was a song
Right.
that from you guys. But I remember we were on our way to a show in South Carolina, and the promoter calls. We've already drove 4 hours, and we're maybe 2 hours out, 3 hours out. And the guy, we had a really slow car, so that's normally we'd do it in four, but we had a real slow one. Too bad spark plug, so it only run about 40. But anyway, no. We're on our way, and the promoter calls and says, "Boys, I've got a bad problem tonight." And we're thinking, something's happened to the venue. And he says, "I don't think we're going to be able to do the show tonight. We're 4 hours into the trip." And we asked him what's wrong, and he said, "Well, I saw a promo picture of you boys, and your bass player's got an electric bass, and you guys going to have to go back home." And it was real funny because we got over there, and our bass player had actually switched to a upright bass. He didn't play the electric stick anymore. And anyway, he pulls in there, and he don't get his bass out. And the guy says, "Well, didn't you get my call? We're not going to be able to do this." And it really made us all mad. But our bass player brought his upright bass out, and this guy was just happy, and we had two sell-out shows there. And Kurt was our bass player. Kurt said, "Next time I'm definitely going to bring a upright stick bass and see what he thinks." But it's funny how it's changed. But I'm glad it's staying. I'm glad it's not getting all electric with electric guitars and stuff. I can do a bass and things like that. But I think.
Well, it's like saying, Phil, if you wanted to play, it's like somebody saying to you, "Look, I want you to write a song, and but I don't want you to write it with any more than 3 chords in it."
Exactly.
To me, that's creative tyranny. You
It
can
is.
imagine what happened to me when we came out with Wheat Straw Suite with drums, bass,
Yeah.
20-piece orchestra, pedal steel, Buddy Emmons, all of that stuff, and Joe Osborne on electric bass.
Uh-huh.
You can imagine what I went through with the Fester people back then. But you want to know a little secret about it all that's kind of sad? When our album became one of the top 10, was it back in the southern area when we were on United Artists, we started getting the festival. You know why? Because they thought we would bring in a crowd, and they would make money.
Sure. And it's the things like the festivals where they get picky. If they don't bring in a lot of people anyway, then they can complain about a bass. But when you're bringing in a big crowd, it's like, okay, that bass, we're all right with that, with you guys, and it's like some bands it would work, if Vince Gill had his electric or had his bluegrass band or what, they wouldn't care if he brought in an electric or an upright because he's Vince Gill and he's going to bring people in, and that's what they want.
That's what.
So
Well, I'll tell you a little. I broke those walls down back in the '60s.
You did. Yep.
Yeah, and I know, and I suffered for it, because I got blasted. But I am so glad I did it. I could not have just, and I can go back and play old time bluegrass anytime I want, and I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I can get together with Byron Burline and Alan Mundy and everybody, and we can just pick. But I have to do what I got to tell you. Can I tell you another little story?
You've got all night, Rodney.
But
Sure do.
I got to tell you this. I probably shouldn't mention too many names, but I was playing Watermelon Park. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We were doing the tour up there. We were doing all those things, and we were plugged in, and that's when that tour is where J.D. Crowe asked me, "How'd you go about plugging in?"
Is that right?
They started plugging in pedal steel.
Sure.
And I said, what you don't want to do is plug in and play what you do play, because it'll just be noise. You've got to do your arrangements to fit, what that is. So anyway, we're playing Watermelon Park, and we had packed it out. And it was those days when people were raucous. And
sure.
I think we were on our second or third on. You know how that used to work.
Sure.
And they wouldn't let us off. And I turned around, and there was a certain bluegrass legend and a certain booking legend from the old school who just hated anything that wasn't just straight down the line.
I know both of them.
And they were looking at me they were looking at me, down their noses, and, they were looking at the crowd and looking at that, and they were just freaking out. And as I did my last number, I had, at the old time, I was playing ovations because I didn't want to mess up my mark.
Sure.
and as I walked off, I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to be a bad boy. I turned the volume up on my ovation, and as we walked off stage on the last number and the drum hit the end, I threw the guitar right straight up in the air and walked off.
And it didn't damage it either. It'd been an ovation, did it?
No, it hit on its back.
Oh yeah, well, true. People used to take those and cut the neck off and paint them green and use them on Halloween for Ninja Turtles. Remember that? But it's funny. Tony Rice actually, played the ovation on Manzanita on some of the cuts I know. But that's Tony Rice. He'd make it would sound good, whether it had been thrown in the air or not. It was kind of, it was kind of funny. They were pretty durable guitars,
Oh my gosh, Ovation gave me, gave me several of those guitars, and I played them on different things.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they were, and in fact, I think I used one on when I toured with Elton. I used that in my Mayberry Martin. I still have that Mayberry music that I used on the Mayberry show.
Wow.
Andy Griffith Show.
What was that?
And
what was the year and stuff of that?
It's a '63 D28.
Wow.
Brazilian.
You still got that?
Oh, it was set in a museum in North Carolina for a while, along with Beverly's banjo, and then I think they want it in a couple other museums I'm looking at here. And but I just talked to Martin a while ago, and they were talking to me about putting it in theirs, but I put a price on it. They won't take it, but I got it because I would like for it to sit in the Martin Museum because that's where it was born.
Right. Sure. Do you just kind of do you lease it out? Is that what you do?
No, I just I let the one North Carolina. I just let them have it. I made sure they were insured for it.
Oh yeah,
and
sure.
It's sat for 2 months. Where was it, Evan?
In North Carolina.
North Carolina Museum of History.
Wow.
And I know I could put it in Owensboro or down here at the CMA thing.
Sure you could. Sure you could.
But it's for sale. I got it for sale.
Somebody had told me that, and is there a place somebody can find your ad for it that might be interested in buying it?
Oh, just go to RodneyDillard.tv and they can check me out there.
Yep, RodneyDillard.tv.
Yep.
I tried several times to get you. Years back, I kept putting .com and .net, and I didn't realize it was .tv. So I know how to get you now. So I tell you what, let me shake some jars up around here. I may throw some in PayPal and buy that guitar from you tonight. So let me find out.
Okay.
I've been cleaning my pockets out the last last few months and during this Corona. So, I may have enough, like you said. Where did you get to, Oklahoma, before you run out of money?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That almost 200 miles away or more.
Well,
300 miles.
I'm in Knoxville. I probably wouldn't make it. I wouldn't make it to Crossville on what I've got here. That's just halfway to Nashville. So anyway, I'll keep throwing some in. This Corona's over. I'll may buy it from you, but don't hold your breath till I see how much it costs. But
I can't afford to hold my breath these days.
no, I mean neither, buddy. Hey, before we go and I sign off for the night, will you tell us one more good story from Mayberry? I always enjoy those. They're as funny to me, even if it's one you've told. They're as funny to me every time because you tell them so good, and a good story that you like or Beverly likes. Either one of those. Just tell us another good Mayberry story.
Well, I could give some insight, not necessarily maybe
Sure.
Well, I got it. I'll tell you two. One's kind of an off story, off Mayberry set. But Denver Kyle came up to dinner one night to my house, and he was so proud. He said, "I'm going to drive my Woody." He had gotten this old 40s, early 40s Woody station wagon. What do you call it? Rebuilt, redone, or
sure, restored.
What do you do?
Restored.
Huh?
Restored.
Yeah, restored. He was so proud of it. And I lived on a street and up near La Crescenta, and we were all in there eating, and Mitch was with us. We were all just sitting down there having a good time, and all of a sudden we heard this crash. We got up and run out, and some drunk had run into that thing.
Oh, wow.
And locked himself into it, and this caved in the front fender, and I was, oh man, poor Denver. And this guy was out there just standing there, and Mitch was out there jumping on the dadgum bumper trying to disconnect it. Being the good citizen, I said, Mitch, wait till the cops get here. Wait. He did, and he got the guy disconnected, and the guy got in the car and drove off.
And he never found out who it was?
I don't think, and they never caught him, no.
Oh, wow.
And poor Denver had come up just to have dinner and show me his new station wagon, and then he got off the track. I felt really bad.
I've restored it. And I wanted to say to a lot of my folks out there that don't know all this exactly, most of us do, but Denver Powell was somebody that you knew was Briscoe Darling. So that's who that was, in case you didn't know who Denver was. Tell us another good story there, Rodney.
Well, just like
and then I'll let you go because I know you just got out of the hospital. I don't want to keep you.
I tell you, you made my getting out of the hospital fun. I'm so glad that we got to do this. I must tell you, I've enjoyed myself tonight.
Thank you, buddy. I've had a great time with you. I mean, I've run over 30 minutes and it's okay. I've still got a ton of people watching and enjoying this. So, they're loving it, and I'm good as long as you want to go. But I don't want to keep you long. I do want to get another story from you, and then maybe let you go to bed.
Okay, I got one more quick. It's not a story so much as it is some of the. Don Knotts really was not really comfortable being around animals. And he didn't like dressing up, as a woman. Those two things he weren't really comfortable with, and he didn't like.
I didn't know that.
Anyway, one of the first things he did, he had to ride a horse backwards.
Wow.
With black rider on a white horse riding backwards.
Yeah, I remember that.
Well, he had to be around the horse, and the other one was Mountain Wedding.
Wow. I remember. I didn't realize. I mean, that's some pretty big things to do. I'm good. I'm good with a horse, but I don't go much further than patting them on the head. I mean, if I didn't like them, I'd have to ride one backwards.
Yeah. Well, I think they had somebody do that for him, but he had to be around the horse with the horse.
Sure.
And then he had to dress up like Charlene and Mountain Wedding.
So, how many takes? I mean, I'm not going to say the numbers, but how many times did he have to? Was that done like in a day or something? I mean that
Yeah,
that
we we did that scene. Actually, it's up above the where were we? What was it? The reservoir up there. Gosh, I can't even think of the name of it now. But it's up off of Mulholland Drive up there is where we shot that outdoor scene,
wow.
and above Beverly Hills up there. And it was Franklin Canyon Reservoir. That's where we shot that,
Okay.
and all those outdoor scenes like that. But that scene probably took most of the morning, I guess, that we did. You shoot those outdoor scenes, it'd be most of the day.
Sure, sure.
They're all day shoots, most of them. You'd get in at 6, and maybe you'd get out 4 or 5 in the afternoon.
That's I always learn a lot from you, Rodney. I really do. I try to read up on a lot of stuff from different people, but your story and that of the Dillards, you guys have an amazing story of all. I mean, how everything happened, and I know that's a God thing. The way, you take off heading west looking for work, and you wind up on, one of the longest running TV shows. How many times a day do they say that's on somewhere? Don't they say like every day it's on 2 or 3 times or more every day somewhere?
All over the world, I get my ass caps from all over the world.
Wow, buddy,
Isn't that
that's
crazy for a kid that came out of the Ozarks? And I mean, I was raised with no electricity and no running water.
hmm
And I went to a one-room schoolhouse. And I walked to school through the field to get to the one-room schoolhouse. And that's how I grew. That's how I was raised up until I was 14 before we got
Wow.
electricity.
So this was
And then
that was a big thing for you.
Yeah, and then I rode the horse to school. I got
Really?
got a mare, and I started raising it out of that mare and breaking my own horses. Yes, sir.
Was there a place? I mean, was there a place like you would hitch it at school?
I would ride it to school, and I had a friend by the name of Bob Greens who lived close to in town, at the edge of town, and they had a little place of 2 or 3 acres, and I'd take old Cindy out there and let her go, and then I'd go to school. Then I'd go home with Bob and get my horse and ride it home.
Buddy, I just can't imagine what a big go from that and then being in Hollywood, you know. Not said I wasn't going to keep you longer, but I do want to ask you this. Tell me a few of the stars that you saw at Desilu. Was that was the place you were working out of at the time, right? Desilu? Was that where they did Andy Griffith?
The stars that some of the ones I worked with that I met there. The ones I met when I was on the
Yeah.
Andy Griffith Show. I went over. Ken Curtis, who was on the
Um,
Gunsmoke, invited me over to
right.
their Christmas. They invited us all over to their Christmas party with Denver. All of us went over to their
Mhm.
Christmas party wrap up on their set of Gunsmoke. So I
Wow.
got to meet all of those people and talk to all of those and yeah, and there were all different people at the time would come in to see us. Joey Bishop and all those people were shooting in the same lot, and then people would just drop
Wow.
by to see who these guys were. Gene Nelson, the dancer. Oh gosh,
Well, yeah.
so many people. So many people would come by and talk, and it was all through that time. I didn't think much about it then. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, look, that's so and so.
Yeah, you didn't realize. Yeah, they're just people working there, right?
We were all working. We were doing the same thing. We were all doing our craft, so it wasn't that kind of that deal. The only time that I really was impressed is when I first got to Hollywood that time and walked in on the first reading of the show of Andy that we were on was Denver Pyle, and I looked right at him, and all I could say was, "I've seen Roy Rogers beat you up so many times," because he played a
Sure.
heavy on all those old shows like that.
My
West-
dad watched all of them. My dad was
Yeah.
a big Gunsmoke fan. I mean, I remember my dad being on the couch, and he wouldn't get up off the couch when he was watching Gunsmoke. But if you come through and caused a commotion, he didn't want to get up or get away. He'd just pull off a shoe and throw it at you. and I got hit by a lot of shoes, coming riding my little riding stuff in on hardwood floor to be drowning out gun smoke, and here to get this shoe come and hit me in the back or something like that. So anyway, that brings back memories.
And you learned your morals with a pair of shoes.
Oh, I did. They need to use shoes these days a lot more, don't they?
Amen. Amen, Phil. Preach on.
Buddy, I'm gonna let you go, but it's been great having you on tonight. I know it was kind of a seat of the pants thing because my phones have been down all day, and luckily last minute something said call them on Messenger, and that worked. And I appreciate your wife Beverly for helping us out, and it's always good to see you both. I wish this show. And eventually I'm going to try to get this thing over to Zoom so people can see each other and things. But it's been a pleasure.
I've done some of those Zoom things, so anytime you want to, I'm set up for that. So
well,
I got my little studio.
Me too. I'll tell you what, Rodney, would you like to come back again sometime?
I hope to kiss a pig.
All right. You can say that.
Hey. Beverly didn't say that. I'll tell you, Beverly's been she's been an angel for me these last few weeks.
I know.
Taking care of all the family business and stoking the fire. See, I have a big old fireplace because I have a 2-story house up here, and we're in single digits. She's been keeping that fire good and modern.
That's a Carolina girl for you. That's a Carolina girl.
Yeah, that's a Carolina girl for you.
She's a whole lot like my wife, Lisa. I mean, since I've been sick, it's like I can't do anything for myself anymore. I turn around to get something to drink, and she's already set it down, or, it's like I was trying to get ready for you tonight, and she was cooking, and I knew I was going to have to eat late, and she comes flying into the room, and she's hollering, grab this, and it's in a metal pan burning her, trying to get it into me, but she's kept me alive, and I know Beverly that does the same for you, and
she even dialed the phone tonight for me to get you.
You can't beat that. That's
a
good thing.
Try.
Good thing about wives, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, we'll hook up soon, and I want to come and see you at the meet and greet that you're going to be having,
right.
And I'll try my best to get there.
Well, I just pass this on to you if anybody's interested in this album. It's called Old Road, New Again.
Old Road, New Again. They can find that at Pinecastle or at Rodney, or is it RodneyDillard.tv?
Yeah, or they can find it on Amazon or iTunes or any of those.
But Rodney personally autographs them on RodneyDillard.tv.
Yeah, well, if they get RodneyDillard.tv, autograph it.
Well, shoot, I'll order one of those to get that. So
I'll send you one, Phil.
I'll bring you one too, Phil.
Hey, I'll send you my address, but you got to write something nice on it, okay? I know how you really feel about me, but I want you to write something nice.
Okay, I'll
been a pleasure, buddy. You take care of yourself. Okay. God bless you, and you go get in bed and get well, okay?
Okay, God bless you, and it's really been fun. Phil, hang in there, and I'll talk to you soon, and we'll work some more stuff out.
See you, buddy.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. All right. Let me disconnect there, and we'll close off here. But just a minute. I'll make sure that, we're disconnected. Enjoyed having everybody on tonight. I know that you enjoyed Rodney. And like I said, Rodney was sick, and I just, the last 45 minutes before the show tonight, I wasn't sure that I'm out of sync for some reason, but I wasn't sure that he was going to be on here tonight, and I wasn't even sure just for the fact him being sick and then me not being able to do anything on with the phone system, but we got it. But I know we're over tonight, but I want to check out some messages here real quick. A lot of folks, Randy Green was on and enjoyed the show, and David Ellis. Let's see. Let me go up here to the top a little bit. See who all's been on. We've had a lot of people on tonight. let's see. There's just too much to read here tonight. But, let's see. Greg Blankenship's talk about Country Gazette. Yeah, they were a great band, definitely. And Ronnie Lassiter is mentioning, that's his record label, Pine Castle, that they do have Rodney's album, and it's so good, he says. And Kim Harless has enjoyed the show, said, wow, I've met the Whites. It's a good band. I played with them for about a year. I've known the Whites since the late 70s, but I got lucky and got to play with them for about a year up to the time I got my cancer and had to pull out. But enjoyed them a whole lot. Let's see, some more. David Walker said Common Man is a good one. Yep, David knows that because David's son Corey plays with Rodney, and Lonnie Lassiter said he'll send me one of those. Definitely send it in to me, buddy, for sure. And let's see what else we see. My friend Betty Edmondson, she tunes in every week and really enjoyed these stories from True Legends. I can listen all night. Said I always look forward to Thursday Night Live. And I want to mention before we go off next week, I mentioned earlier, but I'm going to have a great guy here that I didn't watch wrestling much. My son watched it a lot. And I can say one thing, there were three names I always heard, even though I didn't watch wrestling. I heard Hulk Hogan, I heard Ric Flair, and I heard Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And anyway, Ricky is a guy from Florida, great wrestler. He was a Florida State wrestling champion. Then he wound up getting into professional wrestling. Wrestled WrestleMania, things like that, WWF, WWE. He was a big star, and Ricky recently moved to Tennessee, married a girl from Tennessee, and she got him watching all those Big Orange videos and stuff, the ones where we were winning. I hope we can get back on that again. But anyway, they moved to Tennessee, so Ricky lives close by. And anyway, he's going to be our guest next week. For any of you folks that's into wrestling, you're going to hear all kinds of stories, just like you did from Rodney tonight. A lot of stories that take place, off the camera. Good back stories on things, and that's what I like. Things that you don't know about, just like Rodney tonight. Stuff coming from the horse's mouth is always good. So. Anyway, tune in next week. He's going to be my guest, and I'm starting to line up some pretty good ones down the road. So anyway, glad to have you on. Please keep me and all your friends in prayer. Keep Rodney Dillard in prayer. He needs that. He's a lot sicker, has been a lot sicker than he acted like tonight. So anyway, keep all them in prayer. Keep your buddies in prayer. And your friends, wear a mask, and just take care of each other. And I'll see you next week, and I'll be announcing in a few days who my next week's guest will be after Ricky Steamboat. So, see you next week. God bless you. Bye-bye.